Good day, everyone. So before we start, you can obviously hear it in my voice. I'm kind of sick of a seasonal flu, and being in a family full of doctors, I'm sort of locked under quarantine. So yeah, I'm bored of my mind, out of my mind. So let's just sort of make a video. Yeah. So today's topic is, of course, the speedrunning versus the high level of gameplay. I think there's like a very, very big difference between the two, and obviously on screen there'll be like a couple of examples of me just beating PMA in under 30 seconds, 28 seconds, whatever. It's just there for a bit of background footage and whatever. I'm not one of those people that actually likes doing speed running for the sake of showing off. For me, it's always been about how you do it, and this is the key distinction. So on screen, you'll see my sort of talking points on speed running versus high game or the high level of gameplay in Genshin Impact. Speedrunning in and of itself is always just done so that people can compare themselves against some sort of community leaderboard. In my personal opinion, I think it's very flawed in Genshin Impact because if you've got, let's say, 900k damage threshold, let's say with PMA and so on, whether you're an F2P team or a hardcore whale, if both of you reach that within a certain amount of time, well, then you've both kind of reached it. It's not like having a proper scoring based system and with like a very, very long extended fight so that you can properly see like the differences. So for me, the current way of doing speedrunning Genshin Impact does not make a lot of sense. It obviously favors certain teams and certain gimmicks and mechanics. And obviously, the final point, as you can see on screen, is that a lot of people sort of want to compare the top end of their spread of outcomes or the spread of clearing times. And that to me is not a very consistent way. It's very RNG dependent. In contrast, what I like about the higher levels of gameplay in Genshin is that the focus is a lot about how you do it. Whether you're an F2P, whether you are like a whale, it's not about like how fast you did it. It's about how did you get to those outcomes, because this gives us a much more solid basis for evaluating characters, seeing what their potentials are, and ultimately even proving negative. So, for instance, like in one of my recent videos, the Jeff would have said, "Oh, you can't clear the Spiral Abyss or the Golden Wolf Lord in a Nilo team without Nahida," and this is precisely what we did. We did it without Nahida. So this is exactly what high level play can do. And of course, high level play does feed into, as a consequence, clearing fast, but that's kind of obviously not the goal. So just as an example, you will very shortly see me using Nilo in a sort of PMA sort of run. And what I want to sort of show you in this example is precisely the small little things that makes high level play so interesting. So right off the bat, you can see I'm going to hit the enemy with Nilo, and then precisely when she goes for her final attack, we're going to animation cancel, immediately go into Mona. So you press Alt 4. This is like a little bit of a PC technique, and the reason why we do this is because all of these little hydro particles that we're getting from Nilo, we want Mona to sort of funnel it, and this is the key thing. We want it by animation canceling properly, by giving Mona the particles. We've set ourselves up later for a bit of success, as I'll sort of now sort of play out in the background. And this is just to sort of get quickly into it. This is what we mean by high level play. It's all these little micro decisions that can lead you to some very, very optimal outcomes, and it also allows you to do that play expression, that sort of skill, because it is a timing thing. It's a very strict timing thing to be able to animation cancel Nilo exactly with Mona, and this is the sort of thing that I kind of enjoy. Whatever the value on the clock is, and we know the Genshin in-game clock is in any case like very flawed, but regardless of what the clock is, we've had like a good sort of run in terms of how we positioned, how we set up, how we used Nahida C6, how we sort of abused sort of Yelan's sort of like E and triggering more from her sort of like what do you call it, Clarion depth dice. These are all the cool things that makes high level play so much more interesting than just getting a big score. And this is why I sort of am kind of like against speedrunning. So you'll see in the background, I'm using a Raiden Shogun team, and obviously we've hit for massive amounts of damage. We're trying to clear the PMA as fast as possible. This would be something that you would sort of see as an equivalent to doing a speedrunning attempt. And just as we're about to sort of like kick off and sort of hit the enemy, we don't crit. And this is the problem with speedrunning in general. The inconsistencies in outcomes and the constant resetting is very often it just doesn't feel like you're doing your characters kind of justice. For me, it's not about how often you reset, but how consistent can you be in the long run? Because if I have to make sure I crit on PMA, I crit on the small robot, and in my subsequent stashes are also going to sort of crit when I hit the PMA in his weakened state, well, that's a lot to ask for, and I think this is why I've started to like characters like Nilo and like Kokomi, because they're just so much more consistent, even though they might not like be the fastest in terms of like clearing and stuff. But talking about consistency, you'll also see another one of my little favorite consistent teams, and this is obviously and the Hida spread teams. This team, as you can see in the background, I can literally do the same run over and over, even if Raiden Shogun doesn't crit, and I always get the same consistent results. With the Bennett and Kujasara, I don't get that consistency, and this is what I sort of mean. Just the way in which you play, the sort of outcomes that you can reach from putting together a team that can be consistent. That's what makes Genshin fun. That's what makes it so cool. And you'll see now in the background, we're going to now do this exact same bit, but just without Raiden in the beginning. And yeah, this is just sort of what I wanted to highlight. But yeah, guys, that's sort of what I wanted to cover in this video. Just sort of why I personally am not a big fan of speedrunning, and it's much more about the how for me than the actual outcomes. Let me know what you think and if you sort of feel the same way. Thanks for watching, and please wish me well because I'm just feeling so bad.